Good Monday makers. My name is Jake, and in today's episode, we're going to be looking at a Ferris wheel, two garden trellises, a voiceover booth, and a filtration housing for a sensory deprivation chamber with a really cool hack. Let's jump in and check out the builds. First up is this Ferris wheel from Mark. And you might remember way back, we've talked about this build a couple of times in the past, and Mark shared the finished build. And it looks great, and here it is. We can see it in action. He's got these two motors here with some kind of an axle going across that spins the Ferris wheel around. And I don't really have a whole lot of information on the motors or anything like that. Maybe we can get maybe an interview with Mark or something and kind of hear more details. But he's got this axle that goes across, and then you can kind of see here that there's maybe a 3D printed or custom kind of crossover clamp here that's really wide and actually holds a lot of the pipe inside of it. This allowed him to do the cross bracing for the Ferris wheel with the conduit coming out of it. And then he just used T connectors to connect the round, completely bent full circle conduit pieces here on both sides. And then there's also some T bracing going side to side between the two circles. That's really great. It looks awesome. Again, I don't have a ton of information, but we'd love to hear more, Mark, if you're watching, because I think it's really cool, especially that you've involved motion. We love seeing builds with motion, but I'd love to know more about the axle that you used here in between the motors. And actually, I don't know if there's an axle that goes from side to side. I think that's why there's two housings. Maybe there's a motor in each one and there's just a stub coming out. But regardless, we'd love to hear more about it. But it's a great project. And I love this sign here. It says, allow the light of your brightest day to shine onto your darkest hour. So that's really great. Nice Monday motivation for you. But that's really awesome, Mark. Thanks so much for sharing that. We love seeing it. Next up is a build from Raymond, who shared a bunch in the community. And most recently, he shared this trellis project. And he included a ton of details with a lot of great tips and tricks for building and bending. And you can see here, he built this trellis system that looks really good here. It sits on this kind of curved garden bed in the back here, and it looks really nice, but he wanted this to also kind of be bent and have a nice aesthetic. And what he did, he figured out he wanted 18-inch radius bends here. And to kind of figure that out and figure out where he needed to mark the bends, on the conduit, because in order to do a bend like this, you have to do it incrementally, which means you kind of bend a little bit. And in this case, you bend 10 degrees, move a few inches up the pipe, bend 10 more degrees, so on and so forth. And to figure out where those marks needed to be, that he needed to bend for every few inches, he used this formula here to figure that out. And I'm not going to try to explain it because I would probably butcher it, but he did a great job explaining it. It'll be linked down below. You can check it out so you can figure out how to do something similar. But once you figured out that formula, he has a couple of great tricks for actually bending, one of which was to put a full line all the way down the conduit. And then he used a speed square to kind of make sure that was accurate all the way down, which is a great tip. And then you can see here, he put a mark on the bender so he could line up the mark on the conduit and the mark on the bender all the way down. Because if you don't do that, let's say you bend that 10 degree and you go up a few inches and then you accidentally rotate the pipe a little bit, you'll have a pipe bend there and then one going off to the side that'll be offset. So to avoid that, it's really good to use some kind of method just like this to make sure you're bending along the same plane all the way up your bends or all the way up the conduit. And another great trick here is he used a clamp to hold tape measure on the pipe as he was marking every 3 inches or so, 3¼ inches, something like that. And he used the clamp to hold on the tape measure to the conduit and then just went up the pipe and marked where he needed to make his bend. So that's really clever, really great trick for building and bending. And then he said he used a rat tail file to deburr the conduit. He said it didn't take very long and it worked great. And then you can see he started putting together the build. So this is it before he painted it. And you can see it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 verticals. And then he used these off-the-shelf couplings to connect the verticals to the bent pipes. And then he used T-connector bracing kind of. There's a design. So this one goes side to side on top of the couplings. The next one goes below the couplings, on top, below, and then I think below again on this side. Looks great. And then that was just a nice little design, just to give it a different look. So it's not all the way the same all the way across. It looks nice. And then he's got these 18-inch radius bends that go up to the top, and he's got them connected to a T connector here at the top. It actually might be one solid bend all the way around. He's got a T connector that goes back to a 180, and then these middle bends here connected to that 180. And then in the back, he 3D printed this hub here for the back 3 bends, and then the pipe that comes out of the front to connect to the 180. And I guess so the front pipe here is one solid piece that's bent perfectly all the way around. And then the middle pipe is 2 and it goes through the 180. And the back, I think, is 3 different pipes that come in at 3 different angles. And that's why he 3D printed this hub here for him. But it looks great. And then he said he used mechanics wire for the actual netting that's gonna, hold up the plants. So it looks great, really fantastic. I've never heard of mechanics wire, but he said it's like Gorilla Tape and a speed square. Once you've got it, you can't imagine what life was like before you had it. So that's really great. It looks awesome. He said he painted the whole thing green. He used Rust-Oleum paint and primer, and he said he's used it in the past. That's his go-to method for painting conduit and maker pipe connectors. That's a really awesome trellis. Thanks so much, Raymond, for sharing that and all the details. Definitely go check out some more of the details. He shared a ton about how he did it, including why he used half-inch EMT conduit. He's had a half-inch EMT conduit structure in his garden before that lasted several years against wind and storms. So he was more than happy to use half-inch EMT again here to save some money. A lot of great details. Thanks so much, Raymond, for sharing that. We love seeing it. Next up is a voiceover booth from Steve. And you can see here, this is very similar to Aiden's voiceover booth that we saw recently, at least from the outside. When you actually look at the framework, it's a lot different because Aiden's was built to be freestanding, that he can move from a kitchen to a living room and then break it down and store it away whenever it's not in use. But this one looks like they have a nice studio here, and they wanted this one to kind of be semi-permanent. You can take apart the maker pipe connectors really easily, but they have it connected with flanges. You can see there's a piece of wood on the roof attached, or the ceiling that it's attached to. And then also you can see here, there's some more flanges attached. There's a lot of bins here in the build. Looks like everything is shrink wrapped. And then he just built this kind of framework that goes above everything. It's kind of elevated, so there's no framework on the walls or underneath or anything. This allows the sound blankets to just hang from the pipes, and there's no framework kind of going down. Everything is just elevated. And he said it worked really well. It was really strong and supported the sound blankets. And it looks like it's kind of a complex structure. So it looks like there's a flange that goes straight down. There's a four-way connector that sends the pipe across to the other side, connected to a T. Then they've got this pipe that goes all the way up to the front, and I think connects to the flange there. Yeah, you can see here. I guess it just sits or rests on top of the pipe. And then this one, there's two flanges side by side, I think. And then there's two pipes coming out of those flanges that go all the way around. So there's a lot of complex bends in the build, but it looks great. It looks like it came out awesome. He said it's strong, and they've enjoyed using it. That's really great to hear, Steve. Thanks so much for sharing that. We love seeing the project. Next up is a trellis from Nancy. And if you've been in the community for a while or watched the videos, then you've probably seen Nancy's trellis in the past. And last year she had a really great trellis set up, and I think she had these same kind of flood tables, or whatever you call them. I think they're flood tables or maybe raised beds. I'm not sure the proper name, but she had them kind of end to end instead of side by side like they are now. But she said that her and her husband wanted more room on the deck for other things, so she kind of made it more compact. And she said that the connectors and the conduit is all the same, that she just took it all apart really easily and then rebuilt it into this new configuration, which is something that she said she liked about MakerPipe, which is cool to hear. And you can see it's a really simple design, but it looks like there's two verticals next to these flood tables on both sides, or both ends, that go up, and then they're connected. I believe this is 90-degree connectors here, because there's a pipe that goes from this corner all the way to this corner. And then this design on this trellis is the same as this one here. And it looks like there's just, a few braces going side to side with T's. And then I see the starting part of the trellis netting that she's going to be adding, or there's a certain method that she's using. But she said she's got to plant some more peppers, I think, before she actually finishes it up. So it was looking great so far. And the good thing about having the pipe going from that corner to that corner on both sides is she had the support system, and she just added the sunshade material covering both flood, or all four flood tables, and covering the whole area here, including the walkway. So that's really smart. She said that they're about to be renovating this kind of whole back area. They got a ton of raised beds. You can see they're going to be replacing all of them. I said the wood's starting to rot, and they haven't really messed with them in a few years. So they're going to be replacing all of these and then building a whole trellis system for all of the raised beds using conduit and maker pipes. So we're really excited to see that. That's gonna be really great. But thanks so much, Nancy, for sharing this. We love seeing it. Love seeing all your projects. Next up is a build from Luke, and this is really cool. I love this because there's a really cool hidden hack underneath. So if you're looking at this on the outside, well, first of all, this is a filtration housing for a sensory deprivation chamber. If you don't know what that is, it's basically this chamber you get into, so it's dark, so you don't have your eyesight, so you lose that sense. And then there's also some other things, like the water has a bunch of salt into it that allows you to float kind of the top of the water. And it's kind of used for meditation or just kind of like decompressing. And they're building one, I guess, in their home. And it's a really interesting thing. You can go to a facility, I think, that they're pretty common nowadays, kind of an interesting thing. But they're building one, and they needed a housing for the filtration system for the water that runs through. And if you look at this from the outside, you might think this is just a wooden cabinet or something like that, but actually, you can see here that it's conduit. And he used two-hole straps to secure the conduit to the wall studs, so there was no need to put the kind of the pipes in the back against the wall. And those run forward with T connectors. He's got 4 of those total, and then those connect to the center here with 90-degree connectors that send a pipe down. And then he's got the center support brace here that's down here with T connectors and then secured to the piece of wood on the ground. And I would assume in the corners it's just T connectors again over here because we don't see a pipe going down this wall. So I would imagine that's just a T connector connected to this front pipe. But what's really cool here is you can see he's got these grip clips or broom clips. They're called different things. You can find them locally, Lowe's, Home Depot, hardware stores, or even get them online, of course. But they're made to hold brooms and shovels and things like that. But since they have a similar diameter to conduit, he just snapped them onto the conduit, but they're attached to the wood paneling here. So he said his old filtration housing, had maybe an access door, maybe like right here, so we could get into the pump, and it was really hard to work around. So with this grip clip or these spring clips, he can easily take off the whole panel. He just pops it off the frame and the top, as you can see here, the top and the front, and he can just take it off really easily and has access to the complete, filtration system for easy maintenance, which is really awesome. We had somebody reach out the other day and ask if somebody had done this, and I hadn't seen anything before. Now we have a good example of this, and that's a really awesome hack. Those grip clips are really awesome for a lot of things. We've seen all kinds of people in the community use them for all sorts of different things. So really awesome project, Luke. All the builds are great. We love seeing the builds, and if you want to get more details about them, you can check out the links in the description. They'll all be linked down there so you can see the photos and the original post with all the details and description. That's all I have for you this week. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you in the next video.